It's time. Welcome to the War Room, everybody. I am your host, Pistols, again. This is the Front Office Podcast. As you can see by the title today, we break down everybody's least favorite position. It's certainly my least favorite position. I'm sure a lot of other people feel the same way because tight ends are becoming irrelevant. They are very hard to draft. They are very hard to look at and go, yeah, these are where my points are. The tight ends are a tough position. As I say it a lot on the channel. It's just one of those positions that's in my opinion becoming irrelevant. It's becoming harder and harder to trust them. They're not really focal points of any offenses. There's very few names that I feel comfortable drafting, especially on the higher side of the draft. It's a really tough position to draft. But let's get into it. Again, I'm your host, Pistols. We are here once again. The tight end position. My tier one. I'm going to get right into it. We're going to try and make this a shorter episode, which should be easy because there's not really a whole lot to talk about at the tight ends. But my tier one section of the tight ends list are my offensive security blankets. Okay, there's only 4 names in this list. 4 names come to mind that the offense really kind of revolves around. They're young offenses, but they're also, one of them is a really bad offense. But my 4 guys on this list: Trey McBride, Brock Bowers, Tyler Warren, and Tucker Kraft. Okay. Now, a lot of you are probably going to question why I put them in tier 1 and my offensive security blankets tier. Well, Trey McBride's the obvious one. Okay. Trey McBride was the focal point of the Cardinals offense. He played very well with Kyler Murray. He played even better with Jacoby Brissett. Now, we know Kyler Murray has been up and down when it comes to leading the Cardinals. I believe they only made the playoffs like 1 time since he got drafted. But Trey McBride was the only tight end last year over 1,000 yards, and he had well over 1,000. He was like 1,200 yards of offense, and he scored like 10 touchdowns, I think it was. So Trey McBride definitely fits the bill of my offensive security blanket. He is a guy that I feel very comfortable drafting, and I will be very happy with him on my team. With that being said, my next guy on the list is Brock Bowers. Okay. Now, Brock Bowers, again, he is the offensive powerhouse on the Raiders. I know he had a really good rookie season, came in, was the absolute focal point of it. Last year, he had to deal with some injuries, so his numbers kind of dipped a little bit. But now they get a rookie quarterback in Fernando Mendoza, who they drafted number 1 overall. He's got to get comfortable in the league. The NFL is a different paced style game than college ball. I know Mendoza is a great quarterback, and he won the Heisman and all that fun stuff and national championship. But he's going to need a security blanket, and Brock Bowers is going to be that for him. Now, the next guy I have on my list, Tyler Warren. You're probably wondering, well, he wasn't the focal point of the Colts offense. No, you're correct. But they lost Michael Pittman. They signed Alec Pierce to a massive contract. They still have Josh Downs, and they have Jonathan Taylor in the backfield. What Tyler Warren did last season was alleviate a lot of the pressure on Jonathan Taylor, especially with Daniel Jones back there. We saw Jonathan Taylor really take hold of the offense, but we also saw Daniel Jones take a lot of those red zone and those really, really short yardage touchdowns away from Jonathan Taylor. So with that being said, Tyler Warren just provides another outlet for, Daniel Jones to just really get the ball over the middle. He's a fast, big athletic tight end to catch the ball. We saw him make some big plays last year as a rookie. I expect an even more expanded role for him, especially with Daniel Jones coming back from the injury. And Tucker Kraft is another guy that you are probably going to go, why is he in the tier 1 list? Well, I'm going to tell you why. Because before his injury, he had like double-digit targets through however many, I forget exactly when he got injured, but he was really the focal point of that offense despite having Josh Jacobs, but they had a very saturated wide receiving core. We saw a couple of those guys leave in free agency. Dontavian Wicks went over to the Eagles and Romeo Doubs went to the Patriots. Now, that core of wide receivers and Jordan Love, they're all very young players. Jordan Love still struggles at times. We saw him barely make it to the playoffs. We saw Malik Willis come in for a little bit and play very, very well, which is why he got the contract down in Miami to be their starting quarterback. Tucker Kraft was on pace for well over 1,000 yards, well over 100 targets. He remains a very strong candidate to do the same thing. I believe he got hurt pretty early in the season, which really kind of screwed a lot of people in fantasy. But those 4 guys are the guys that come to mind that really take a stranglehold on the offense. These guys are going to be focal points. They're going to get their targets. They're going to continue to produce, especially Trey McBride, now that we're seeing the whole quarterback change there. And Brock Bowers coming back from injury. I don't let the injury concern me at all. I know Fernando Mendoza is going to need his outlet, and Brock Bowers is going to be that for him. They also don't have any wide receivers to throw to because I can't think of who they are at the moment except for Trey Tucker. And yeah, that's it. I'm pretty sure Trey Tucker is their number 1 receiver. I know they drafted a couple guys, I think. But yeah, moving on to tier 2. Tier 2, I have a longer list. These are my structure pieces. These guys are important to the offense, but they're not always the offense itself, okay? These tight ends that I have in this list really help the offense run, okay? Colston Loveland, George Kittle, Harold Fannin Jr., Sam Laporta, Juwan Johnson, Kyle Pitts, and Jake Ferguson. Now, it's probably a unorthodox list, but we're unorthodox here on the Front Office Podcast. We think outside the box. Colston Loveland came in last year as a rookie. He was a very, very athletic tight end, made some big plays down the field. Caleb Williams, who was scrambling and running for his life a lot of the time. We saw his running ability take a step forward last year under Ben Johnson. We saw his passing take a step forward under Ben Johnson. We saw them make the playoffs. They won. They beat the Packers in the first round. Ultimately, they obviously didn't make it to any further than that. But Colston Loveland is a structural piece because we saw them lose DJ Moore to the Bills in free agency, and with the trade that they made. Actually, I don't think it was a trade. I think it was. Oh no, just kidding. It was a trade. I don't even know my own team. That's sad. I probably should have did a little research, but as you all know, we don't do research on the show. But Colston Loveland really showed some big playability and down the stretch really was that safety valve for Caleb Williams, who, like I said, was running for his life, was an easy dump off, big plays happened. He's going to need that again. That's just the kind of system that they run. And Colston Loveland is going to thrive. George Kittle is on my list as a structured piece. Now, the San Francisco 49ers, they run through Christian McCaffrey. Okay, they focalize the running back position. Christian McCaffrey does it all. He lines up in the slot. He lines up in the backfield. He can run. He can catch. He scores points left and right. I mean, his ceiling is through the roof and his floor is just as high. But George Kittle remains a structural piece to that offense when he's on the field and when he's healthy. George Kittle is going to get his targets. I know some injuries last year again kind of derailed his season, but for the most part, George Kittle is definitely a structural piece. He's very, very important to the 49ers offense. Now I know he's aging a little bit, but I don't see any wide receivers really taking on that role outside of Mike Evans, who is now joining them from the Tampa Bay Bucks. We still don't know how he's going to react and fit into Kyle Shanahan's offensive system. Now, a guy like Mike Evans he's a very big-bodied, contested catch, red zone target monster. But being on a new team that still runs the offense through Christian McCaffrey, but the 49ers are built in a way that even if an injury does happen, they never skip a beat. We saw Mac Jones come in and play very well for them. They split time because of the Brock Purdy injury. George Kittle was hurt. We saw Jake Tonjes come in and play very well. Christian McCaffrey was the focal point of that offense. Now, we don't know what's going on with Brandon Ayuk. They have Ricky Pearsall. They lose Juwan Jennings. So a lot of moving pieces in San Francisco, which is why George Kittle is that focal piece to that offense. Now, Harold Fannin Jr. might be one of the controversy picks here in my tier 2. And the reason I have him so high is because the Browns are ass. I'm sorry, Browns fans. I know that might offend you, but the Browns have been garbage for a very long time. Now they have a quarterback competition again because they're bringing Deshaun Watson into the mix. They have Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel, and these guys that are just going to compete to be the starting quarterback of the Browns. Why anybody would want to compete for that job, I have no idea, but that's behind the point. But Harold Fannin played very, very well as a rookie, even with David Njoku there, who is the better tight end, who is more athletic, in my opinion. But Harold Fannin came in the clutch. He scored some touchdowns last year. He was a very big part of the offense. Now, I know they drafted a couple wide receivers, Denzel Boston and KC Concepcion. They still have Jerry Jeudy, but whoever the quarterback is of the Browns, they're still going to need an outlet, and Harold Fannin really showed that athletic ability that he has. He's a structural piece. He's going to be a structural piece to that offense. It's the NFL though, and I understand that these guys are professionals and they're athletes, and you don't make it to the NFL if you're not good. It's unfortunate for the Browns that they've been bad for so long. They've had 60 quarterbacks in the last 10 years, something like that. But yeah, he's going to be a focal point of that offense. Next on my list, I have Sam Laporta. We all know what Sam Laporta can do. He came in to the league on a high-powered offense, got drafted by the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions are a very, very pass-heavy offense. They utilize all their wide receivers, the running backs. We saw them have a Sonic and Knuckles split between Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. David Montgomery is now gone and is solely Jahmyr Gibbs' backfield. Now, I know they brought in Isaiah Pacheco, but Sam Laporta relieves a lot of pressure for Jared Goff. We saw Jared Goff struggle last year, but they still threw the ball a ton. Amon-Ra is their focal point. Obviously, Jameson Williams is their deep threat. Sam Laporta had an injury last year that kind of derailed him a little bit, but and for the most part, we are going to see Sam Laporta be very heavily involved in the Lions offense, as he usually is year after year. Now, let me preface this too before I continue on with my list here. The tight end position should not be drafted anywhere near the first 4 rounds of your draft. I don't care if it's Trey McBride or Brock Bowers or the guys in my tier 1 list. You can wait on a tight end because there are more important positions on an offense that need to be drafted first. But Sam Laporta is going to be a focal point of the Lions offense. He's going to relieve a lot of pressure. He's going to open up the middle of the field. You're going to see a lot of diversity in the Lions offense, as you do under Dan Campbell. He likes to throw. He likes to run. It doesn't matter. Sam Laporta sits in tier 2. I also have another controversial pick that you guys might find crazy, but Juwan Johnson of the New Orleans Saints, he played a very big role in the Saints offense trying to acclimate Tyler Shuck into it. We saw Tyler Shuck kind of find his own towards the end of the season. We know he's got Chris Olave out there somewhere. If he can stay healthy, it's going to be great. But Juwan Johnson is a veteran in this league. He's going to get his points. He's going to be that outlet for Tyler Shuck as he gets acclimated to the league. The Saints are one of those teams that they got a lot of age on that team. Alvin Kamara, they bring in Travis Etienne, which I still hate saying Travis Etienne. It's ETN. I don't care what anybody says. But Juwan Johnson is going to provide exactly what Shuck needs to be able to get the ball out quick. He's a veteran. Again, like I said, he knows what he's doing. He's going to thrive in the new offense for the Saints. I have Kyle Pitts in tier 2 as well. We saw him still dominate. He was the tight end 2 last year behind Trey McBride by about 400 yards. That's why I have Trey McBride in tier 1, Kyle Pitts in tier 2, because he is going to be that outlet for Tua Tagovailoa, who I have no doubt in my mind that is going to win the QB competition down there. I don't think Michael Penix was ready for the NFL, but Tua has been here before, but he might be, one concussion away from not having a career anymore. But that's besides the fact. Kyle Pitts still remains a top tight end in the league. I know I've had my differences with Kyle Pitts in the past, but the stats still show that he's been 1,000-yard receiver for most of his career, his short career so far. I know he didn't get there last year, but we saw him really kind of take control of that position. He's a contested catch guy. You throw the ball up, he's most likely going to come down with it. And now that they only have Drake London on the outside, I know you pair it with Bijan Robinson, but Kyle Pitts is going to be an absolute structure piece for the Atlanta offense, and they're going to need that. The last guy I have on here is Jake Ferguson. Now, he might be probably higher on the tier list than most people would expect, but with a saturated offense with CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, he still gets his targets. He's great in the red zone. Dak Prescott trusts him to go out there and make a play, and that's what matters when it comes to the tight end position, because the tight end position is about the quarterback and how much they trust their guy over the middle. I love having Jake Ferguson on my team. I'm also very happy getting him in like the 12th round when all the good tight ends are gone. Now, you shouldn't have to worry about tight ends going too quickly this year, I don't think. But moving on to tier 3. Reliable underneath usage, useful weekly, stability, and limited takeover ability. Okay, these guys are your guys that don't really have too much competition. They don't light up the stat sheet, but they're good for first downs and moving the chains. Travis Kelce is the first one I have on my list. Dalton Schultz, Hunter Henry, Brent Strange, Evan Ingram, Cade Otton, Pat Freiermuth. Here's why I put Kelce in tier 3. First of all, we saw his age really catch up to him last year. He's like 34, 35 years old now. Debated retirement, but he's still the most trusted target that Patrick Mahomes has. And now that Patrick Mahomes is coming off his ACL, MCL injury, we're going to see Justin Fields really, really need that outlet to shine. Regardless of the age showing for Kelce, he's still going, I'd be perfectly happy with Travis Kelce going 50 yards, 5 catches, 50 yards and a touchdown. That's a great stat line for these guys. But you have to ask the question: is the Chiefs dynasty over? I have a couple of videos out there that says it is, but that's for a story for another day. Dalton Schultz. We need CJ Stroud to really take control of the Houston offense, but he's a really solid tight end. is going to get his targets. Again, these guys are chain movers. Their floors are high enough to where you feel comfortable with them on your team. They're not going to make you want to rip your hair out. But you're looking at guys that are possession tight ends that are going to box a guy out and make a contested catch here and there. And, chains are going to keep moving as long as those guys are on the field. Hunter Henry is another one that I have on here. Wasn't a big yardage guy last year, but he was used exactly what this tier states, as a chain mover. Now, I've played against him in Madden too, and they just constantly throw to him over the middle. I know Madden is not a comparison to the real NFL, but Hunter Henry makes this list because Drake May is still a young quarterback figuring out his way. They had a very easy schedule last year, so stats may be exploited a little bit, but Hunter Henry is a solid tight end. Again, he's going to move those chains for the Patriots. Now, especially if they bring over, speculation is that they're bringing over A.J. Brown from the Eagles in a blockbuster trade at some point during the summer. We'll see if that actually comes to fruition now that we have all that Mike Vrabel garbage going on too. Hunter Henry is going to be needed more than ever. And I think that Drake May will utilize that position a lot more. Brenton Strange. I do this every time. I hit the mute button on the top of my mic, and I don't realize it until I see my bar not moving anymore. So I don't know where I left off. But anyway, sorry about that. But Brenton Strange, as I was talking about, from the Jaguars, really kind of had a great second half to the season. He was a beautiful outlet for Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence should probably already be an elite quarterback. We thought that coming out of college. He had some struggles. He's had a really kind of a roller coaster career so far. But Brenton Strange is a guy that was always there for him. Now, we saw him get injured as well a little bit there in the middle of the season, kind of derailed his stats. But we don't go by stats here, which is why the tier list is made. You can't go based on the stats, because if we did that, we would have drafted Justin Jefferson first overall and then ripped our hair out as he didn't score first round numbers last year. But the Jaguars offense has changed a lot. As I said before, Travis Etienne, or Travis Achane, whatever you know him as, is now gone. They bring in Jacoby Myers on a trade midway through the season. They still have BTJ and Travis Hunter coming back from injury. So that offense might feel a little saturated, but Trevor Lawrence is not really a huge deep threat passing quarterback kind of guy. He's a more of a methodical dink and dunk quarterback that will get you down the field. And we saw him kind of take over in the run game. He scored a lot of touchdowns in the red zone. Then you saw him make some incredible runs somehow, get out of trouble. But Brenton Strange is going to be, again, one of those structure piece, or one of those chain movers for the Jaguars, because if Trevor Lawrence's running ability has increased, and that's kind of the offensive direction that they're going to be moving into. Now, like I said, with the injuries that we saw to BTJ and his down year, and Travis Hunter, and then kind of rearranging their wide receiving core, Brenton Strange really had a great second half of the season, especially when he came back from his injury. But Evan Ingram's on my list as well. Now, the Denver Broncos, I did it again. The Denver Broncos are a tough team because they have a very saturated wide receiving core as it is. They bring in Jalen Waddle. They still have Cortland Sutton. We saw Troy Franklin and Marvin Mims flashes in the pan, make some big plays for them. But we saw inconsistency from Bo Nix and the entire offense as a whole. But Evan Ingram is a freak athlete of a tight end. We saw him play on a couple different teams already. Sean Payton loves him. He's going to get his targets. He's going to be able to move the chains. He's a big body guy that over the middle is going to be very crowded for them. Evan Ingram is a guy that I trust to move the chains for me. Cade Otton is another guy. Like I said, we saw the departure of Mike Evans. He's over in San Francisco now. We're looking at Egbuka, Chris Godwin still, who is aging. But Cade Otton is a guy that really took over control of the middle of the field. Now, he's a big body guy as well. Most tight ends are big body guys. You're going to hear me say that a ton this episode. But he saw over 100 targets, and Cade Otton is just a very reliable guy. We're not going to see him drop many balls, but he's going to move the chains up and down the field. He dominates the red zone, especially now that Mike Evans is gone. Those red zone targets are up for grabs, which is why I put Cade Otton here. Pat Freiermuth might be a little high. I debated on where to put him, especially in an offense where we saw Aaron Rodgers just throw to all the tight ends all the time, and you just didn't know which one was going to get the ball, whether it be Darnell Washington, Freiermuth, and at the time Jonnu Smith, who's now a free agent, so they don't have him anymore. But they bring in Michael Pittman, so the wide receiver room could be a little saturated. We don't know the quarterback situation, which is why I put Freiermuth here in this tier. He's probably a borderline 2 guy, especially with the quarterback situation. If we see Aaron Rodgers retire, then they're going to have either a rookie in there. Mason Rudolph's the veteran there now who could get a start. We know what he's capable of, and it's not really lighting up the stat sheet. So the tight end position is going to be utilized quite a bit in the Pittsburgh offense, I feel. We don't know if Jaylen Warren can handle a full workload as a starting running back. We know that Rico Dowdle's there to help relieve some of that pressure. But Pat Freiermuth sits in tier 3. He's just a solid clutch third down tight end. His floor is high enough to where you'd be okay starting him every week. And that'll be my chain movers tier. Travis Kelce, Dalton Schultz, Hunter Henry, Brenton Strange, Evan Ingram, Cade Otton, Pat Freiermuth. My next tier that I have are my touchdown dependents, my tier 4. These guys don't have very high floors, but when they score touchdowns, it looks a lot better in your fantasy lineup. These are going to be guys that really are going to rely on that red zone usage. Dallas Goedert, Oronde Gadsden, David Njoku, AJ Barner, TJ Hawkinson, Dalton Kincaid, Colby Parkinson, Cole Kmet, Mark Andrews. It's kind of a mixed list here. I'm going to start with Dallas Goedert, and the reason I start with Dallas Goedert is because we saw Dallas Goedert score 11 touchdowns last year. I think that's the most he's had in his career. He's on an Eagles offense that is very saturated at the wide receiver position between A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith. I can't remember the other kid that they have, but regardless. But it's also dominated by the run game. When Jalen Hurts runs the ball a ton, they have Saquon Barkley in the backfield. So passing the ball is not normally kind of their MO a little bit, unless you see A.J. Brown go publicly. Even though the Eagles won a ton of games, he still cried and complained that he didn't get the ball enough. So they started forcing him the ball. He ended up with like 1,200 yards. But we saw Dallas Goedert completely dominate the red zone for the Eagles. Like I said, he scored 11 touchdowns, and that was like, I think the same amount as Trey McBride. So he didn't get you a ton of yards. He didn't get you a ton of catches, but with that added touchdown dependency, he's the first one in my list here. Now I kind of comboed Oronde Gadsden and David Njoku because we saw David Njoku play very well in Cleveland. He goes over to the Chargers. He's now splitting targets with Gadsden. They still have Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnston. Keenan Allen is still there. These two guys, neither one of them are really going to light up the stat sheet. Again, these guys are going to be your touchdown dependent guys. This is probably equivalent to the volatility tier that I have for the wide receivers. Your touchdown dependent guys are the most volatile of the tight end group, but at some point someone's going to have to draft them because they're going to need a tight end because all the other ones are gone. That's just how fantasy drafts go. I'm excited to do a mock draft later on once the season gets a little closer, but these two guys are definitely going to be your touchdown dependent guys. They're also going to drive you nuts because you're not going to know which one to start. One week it's going to be Gadsden getting all the attention. The other week it's going to be Njoku getting all the attention. Now we do know that Njoku has injury history and can't stay on the field for an entire season. So we may see Gadsden kind of take over there, but he's still going to be a touchdown dependent guy because Justin Herbert is a monster of a quarterback. He is a tall, lanky dude that can get outside the pocket, and he's got a cannon for an arm. I expect him to throw the ball a ton, and that target distribution has to go somewhere. Like I said, these guys aren't going to light up the stat sheets, but they probably will come into play when it comes to the red zone. AJ Barner's on here. We saw him win a Super Bowl, scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl, but he didn't really light up the stat sheet either. He's another guy that's going to be a touchdown dependent guy. The red zone targets are going to be there. Now the focal point of that offense is JSN. We saw them get rid of Ken Walker, so they're going to roll out either a rookie running back or Zach Charbonnet when his injury decides it wants to heal after being torn in the playoffs. His MCL or ACL or whatever it was in his knee. So we don't know if they have him available. So Sam Darnold is really going to have to kind of distribute the ball a little bit, especially if they want to keep defenses away from his number one guy, which I don't see happening, but I know JSN is very matchup proof because we saw him make really great plays down the field. We saw him take slants to the house. We saw him move the chains. And I feel AJ Barner can be that guy for them as well. But again, it's just going to depend on the touchdowns. If the touchdowns are there, then the stats look better, obviously. But that's really kind of all we have to worry about. The next guy I have on my list, TJ Hawkinson. We've definitely seen a decline in his play now that the quarterback situation is up in the air. TJ Hawkinson, of course, he's coming off an injury as well, but he's going to be another touchdown dependent guy. They're in an offense where they gained Juwan Jennings. They still have Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson. So the tight end position is going to kind of take a back seat to having those three guys on the field, especially if Kyler Murray does end up taking the starting position from JJ McCarthy, who we're still waiting to see if he's going to be good or not. Now we saw him get hurt before his rookie season even started, didn't play. Then he comes back year two, gets hurt. Carson Wentz takes over. Then they kind of flip-flop between him and a rookie, and it was just a nightmare for the Vikings. And then, like I said, in a saturated offense dominated by Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and now Juwan Jennings, who signed there for a year. TJ Hawkinson is going to be a touchdown-dependent guy. His name sounds great because we saw him have a great career in Detroit before he gets shipped off to Minnesota. But the yards and the catches are not going to be there anymore. Touchdown dependency for TJ Hawkinson. The next guy I have on my list, Dalton Kincaid. We all know how I feel about the Bills offense. It's a very everybody eats mentality, and I hate it. But you have Josh Allen throwing the ball. The target distribution is going to be there. DJ Moore coming in is really going to open up the middle of the field on a team that really utilizes all three tight ends. We see Dalton Kincaid run routes. We see Dawson Knox kind of stay in a block. We saw Jackson Hawes kind of maybe leapfrog Dawson Knox in the depth chart as a rookie last year. But Dalton Kincaid is going to be a touchdown dependent guy. He's going to dominate the red zone. He's going to be that outlet for Josh Allen, especially when he gets close to scoring a touchdown. But I wouldn't rush out to get a piece of the Bills offense, especially if you're looking at the tight end position and Dalton Kincaid is sitting there. I would evaluate your other options, but he's going to be a touchdown dependent guy. Colby Parkinson, we saw him kind of be a really nice chain mover, outlet guy for Matt Stafford, who just threw the ball a ton. But again, that offense is just dominated by Puka Nacua and Davante Adams, who scored 24 touchdowns total. Puka had 10. I think Davante had 14. So the red zone target share is really kind of Davante Adams is to lose. Colby Parkinson made some really good plays for them late in the season. He's going to be utilized, just not as much as people would like. They still have Tyler Higbee there too, who also probably fits into the touchdown dependent category that I have. But Colby Parkinson is nothing to write home about. Points are going to be there. His floor is super low. Again, it's going to come down to those touchdowns, and that's what this tier is all about. Now I have Cole Kmet in here as well, because as I mentioned before, I have Colston Loveland up in tier 2, who really kind of took over the tight end position for the Bears. We saw Cole Kmet kind of struggle a little bit, but again, he's just going to be a touchdown dependent guy. It depends on if they even run 2 tight ends out there at any point. Not much to say about him. Mark Andrews is the one I have on here as my touchdown dependent guy. We saw a massive decline in his game. Now I know he's up there in age as well. He's still a solid guy. We saw him score like 11 touchdowns last season, or 10 touchdowns, or whatever the case may be. Or maybe that was a season ago. Either way, in an offense that's dominated by Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, and we saw them kind of lose sight of that a little bit, and then Derrick Henry comes out and scores 4 touchdowns like 2 or 3 weeks later. Mark Andrews is just an aging tight end again, but the reason why I don't have him up in tier 3 with Travis Kelce is because the difference in the Kansas City offense, the difference between the Baltimore Ravens offense is, like I said, it's dominated by the run game and Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson's ability to just get outside the pocket and make a play happen. But we're going to see Mark Andrews really dominate the red zone. But again, his numbers are going to be dependent on if he scores touchdowns or not. And that wraps up the tier 4, my touchdown dependent tier. The last tier that I have on here is my ascending upside. These are the guys that are very, very athletic guys, could really break out and in the tight end position, but they haven't yet. Maybe they're an injury away from being fantastic. First guy I have on here, Jake Tonjes. Next is Chig Okonkwo, Gunnar Helm, Noah Gray, Theo Johnson, and Isaiah Likely. Jake Tonjes, I mentioned before, he's in the San Francisco 49ers offense that, the talent, in this tier, the talent is visible. The opportunity just hasn't fully aligned yet. As I mentioned, Jake Tonjes before, 49ers offense rarely skips a beat when injuries happen. Kyle Shanahan has that offense dialed in to where if injuries do happen, they're still putting up points. They're still winning games. Mac Jones played very well for them. Jake Tonjes played very, very well in the absence of George Kittle. He's just not at the point to where he's going to start over George Kittle. Now he can probably go to a different team and be a starting tight end, but I think his situation with Kittle being there, who will most likely miss time because of an injury as usual, he just kind of sits on the bench waiting for his turn to be called, and it'll happen. But Jake Tonjes is a very good tight end in a system that works, regardless of who's throwing the ball, who's out on the field. It doesn't matter. They're still going to roll. But that opportunity just hasn't fully developed for Tonjes yet. The next guy I have is Chig Okonkwo. Big athletic tight end, can catch the ball. Kind of reminded me of like a Delaney Walker when he was in Tennessee. He leaves the Titans and goes over to the Redskins. Oh, sorry, can't say Redskins. The Commanders. I might have to edit that out, but that's okay. But he's over on the Commanders now. Jaden Daniels coming back from injury. They have Terry McLaurin. They're kind of lacking in the wide receiver position. Jaden Daniels, the Commanders' offense as a whole may not be as good as people think. We kind of got spoiled a little bit with Daniels' first season. Saw him pretty much miss all of last season with the injury. Chig Okonkwo has the ability to be the number 2 receiver on this team. Can definitely relieve some pressure from Terry McLaurin, but the upside is there, the athleticism is there, but the opportunity just really hasn't presented himself fully yet for Chig. Now his replacement, Gunnar Helm, who is a Tennessee Titan currently, the opportunity for him to be great is there. They still have a young quarterback in Cam Ward. They have Calvin Ridley coming back from injury. They have a ton of young wide receivers that played very well down the stretch. But as Cam Ward figures out his offense, Gunnar Helm can be a guy that can step up and relieve some of the pressure for those guys. Again, the talent is visible there. He played very well down the stretch. Noah Gray is another guy I have on here, and he backs up Travis Kelce. He's probably already in line to take over for Travis Kelce when he decides he wants to retire. Patrick Mahomes already trusts him. He gets involved in the offense regardless of Travis Kelce being on the field. But again, the opportunity just hasn't fully developed yet for him, but it can. And my guess is, even with Patrick Mahomes coming back from the injury, it's probably going to be one of those things where it's going to be one or the other type of situation. Travis Kelce is going to take a lot more breaks. As I said, he's aging, and it showed last season. So we're going to see Noah Gray be a lot more involved in the offense. The last 2 guys I have on here, Theo Johnson and Isaiah Likely. The reason I have them on together is because Isaiah Likely now joins the New York Giants. Theo Johnson is already there, but they have John Harbaugh now as their head coach, and John Harbaugh wanted his guy in there. Isaiah Likely is a big athletic tight end. We saw him play very, very well in the absence of Mark Andrews a couple times when he was injured. But it's one of those opportunities where it hasn't fully developed. Now Theo Johnson played very well for the Giants. They have a young quarterback in Jackson Dart, who just needs to stop making some little mistakes to get himself injured. Now we're gonna see these 2 guys compete for targets. They have Malik Neighbors coming back. They lose Wan'Dale Robinson. So the target opportunity is open for both of these guys. Again, if Jackson Dart can kind of figure out his limit his mistakes, not get himself injured, learn how to slide, not take a headfirst dive into somebody's knee or the ground or whatever the case may be, the targets are going to be there for these 2 guys, and that's where they come into the ascending upside tier of the tight end list. But yeah, that is my tier list for the tight end position. Again, it's hard for me to talk about tight ends because I think they're becoming irrelevant. I know there's some very, very talented ones out there. I know I left a lot of people off of the list. So if you made it this far into the video, comment down below, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Let me know who I forgot. Let me know where you would put them. This has been another episode of the Front Office Podcast. I am your host, Pistols, and I can't wait for the next one. We saved the best position for last. The quarterback tier is coming on Sunday, 7 p.m. Central. We'll catch you guys on the next episode. Thank you for joining me.